So I have an amazing story time for you guys. So you know how the Bible literally says to like be a cheerful giver. So I'm gonna give y'all a story time of literally how like when you give to God, and it's not necessarily this is not all the time that this is. I'm just giving you one particular case that I went through and I experienced stuff like that. So there was one particular time God told me to give. Listen, your girl was like no job, had a major surgery. Your girl was broker than broke. I had like probably maybe $5 to my name. It was crazy, right? And this was literally like, and the Lord said, give it. All I had was some change in my pocket. When I tell you, when God told me to give, it wasn't the fact He told me to give because I was willing to give. I was like, Lord, you deserve more than like, I think I had like $1 in my pocket. Not even $1, like in change. I was so embarrassed putting it in the offering plate and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? The tithing offering plate. I was so freaking embarrassed because I'm like, Lord, you deserve more than that. I felt like, the enemy tried to bring shame and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is, like, God, I was obedient and stuff like that. Tell me why the same day I put like $1 in, right? Why did somebody bless me with $100 the same day? Obedience is better than sacrifice. I don't care what nobody say. I don't care. I don't care. Because listen, when you sow into God's house, literally, like you reap what you sow. You know what I'm saying? And God's math be amazing. You know what I'm saying? So whatever God is telling you to be obedient in, listen. Just be obedient. Just be obedient. Because look, I was so like shocked when I was literally like, I started crying. I did the ugly cry. You know what I'm saying? I did the ugly cry and stuff like that. And I just was like crying because I was like, Lord, like, and I was obedient to what He told me to give. And I was like, Lord, I felt like in the Bible, when all the Pharisees and all the people that had a whole bunch of money, they gave, out of the abundance of what they gave. But I felt like the lady that gave, and I'm pretty sure y'all gonna put it down in the comments and stuff like that. But the lady that literally didn't have like a lot to give, like two denaries, I believe that's what it's called. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she gave like 2 cents or something like that. I don't know what it translates to, but she only had like a little bit to give, and that was all she had. And I literally felt like that, and I literally saw like God literally like turn around and literally give me like I believe that's 100-fold or something like that of what I put in. And I always say it was 100-fold. It was more than that. It was less than $1. And like God still told me to give it, and I just was like, now if I wasn't obedient, you know what I'm saying? And I gave it, and I was so embarrassed because like I was walking up there. Why the change start jiggling in the envelope and stuff like that? And I didn't want to put the amount that was in there. I was like, Lord, this is all I have to give, but I gave it out of obedience and out of what God told me to do and stuff like that. And man, oh man, like I was so surprised. And like during that time, I was literally able to like get like so much stuff that I needed to get. So literally, like God, by me being obedient, God literally supplied all of my needs in that moment. So there's oftentimes where God will ask you to do like things, and it's an act of obedience, right? So and that was an act of obedience for me because I could have said no, and you know what I'm saying. But the obedience was, if you say yeah, and God knew what was already on the other side of my yes. You know what I'm saying? So this is just encouragement that if God is literally telling you to do something, is God telling you to, be obedient in an area and stuff like that. Just remember like with the lady and stuff like that. If God telling you to give it all, listen, give it all. Make sure it's God, right? Pray about it and stuff like that. And I was praying about it. He was like, yeah, just give it. Like, and I'm like, okay. So I gave it, but I thought it was so like embarrassing when I went up there because all you hear is the change jiggling every time I'm walking. I'm like, Lord. I said, my heart, Lord. And I just was like, dang. And then when I say literally, when I got out of church, somebody literally blessed me with $100. I was like, that ain't nothing but God. Like, that ain't nothing but God. I got so many stories like that where like God will tell me to do something and it's out of obedience. And like, I got so many freaking stories. It's like so amazing. I'm gonna give y'all one more story. I remember God told me to give something to somebody. I'm not gonna say the amount and stuff like that. But this time I wasn't working either, and it was a large amount that I got, but I needed it for something else. But it was literally like, if you're gonna trust me, like God, I felt like God was saying like, "Hey, are you gonna trust me?" I'm like, Lord, I didn't see you do it before, so like it ain't nothing for me to just give. You know what I'm saying? So I gave this particular person, because it helped them for what they needed. You know what I'm saying? And they were in need as well. So I looked beyond myself. I was obedient to what God told me to do. And why, literally, why, like I believe it's that same day or that same week. I know it's the same week for sure though. But why did somebody pay my rent? Like full amount rent and everything like that. So it's like the Bible says like you reap what you sow, and like obedience is so much better than sacrifice. So if God telling you to do it, man, do it, because you don't know what's on the other side of your obedience. You don't know. And all the time, I'm not saying God is always gonna, give you stuff back in return. There's been other times where God has told me to give stuff and like I didn't get stuff back in return. But you know what? But I knew I was still obedient to what God told me to do. But I'm just giving you an example of just like some ways that, God has literally like he literally told me to do something and I just did it. So you gotta have such like a radical faith and stuff like that, and like a radical obedience and stuff like that, that when God say move, you just move. You know what I'm saying? Don't even allow your mind to, second guess or doubt and stuff like that, because it's so easy to doubt and second guess. But just, remember that like God is faithful. Remember, if God's telling you to do it, there's always gonna be like something on the other side. And it doesn't mean like the monetary stuff, right? It doesn't mean, like God will do this or do that. And not saying he won't, but it doesn't mean necessarily if you give like $50 that he'll give you $500. Not saying he won't, but I mean, you never know, right? But what I mean by that is, like if God's telling you to do it, just do it, because you never know like what's on the other side of like your obedience and stuff like that. So obedience is always going to be better than sacrifice. So this is another story time, and I shall see you guys later.